But right now, weighing in on this, as he does on so many issues of national import, especially political issues, is our good friend Dick Morris. Dick, the political analyst who has advised presidents and gives us a healthy dose of advice from time to time. Tell us your take on what happened last night in Virginia 7.
Well, JD, I think it was mainly due to immigration, where Cantor really attempted to flirt with the pro-Latino immigration forces, but at the same time keep himself positioned with the Republican base. And I think he just fell through the crack. I think that this is the first casualty of a deliberate strategy by Obama that I think is working very well, that we don't really understand. He knows that as long as he fails to enforce the current immigration law, he's going to drive Republicans crazy, and he's going to make it impossible for them to pass immigration reform. Because after all, the major tenet of the Republican approach is first seal the border, and then when you're sure no one else can come in, then proceed with what you want to do within the United States, knowing that it won't encourage another wave of immigration. But by failing to enforce the border, by defanging border agents, by ending deportations, lowering the fines on employers who hire illegals, granting legal status probably to the spouses of dreamers and to the spouses of those who enlist in the military and all kinds of other things like that, Obama is making clear to the Republican base that he will not enforce the current immigration law. And by going after Arizona, he's making clear he'll stop anyone else from enforcing it also. What that's doing is making the Republican base highly intolerant of any move toward immigration reform. What it's also doing is making the Latinos loyal to Obama because he's, by executive action, moving to accomplish what they had hoped would be accomplished legislatively. So the result is that there's no possibility of compromise. The base in the Republican Party won't go along with the compromise because they don't trust Obama on this issue. And I believe that what's happening here is that Cantor was the good faith guy who tried to accommodate both sides and craft a pro-immigration reform responsible position that would be acceptable to the base but also would work politically. And he just fell between two chairs. And the sacrifice of the innocents, in effect, the sacrifice of the moderates on this issue, I think is a deliberate part of Obama's strategy. He's trying to make the Republican Party unacceptable to Latinos.
Well, Dick, we know that a lot of folks in Washington are watching the result of this. You mentioned the immigration issue, and I was wondering if you could weigh in for us and how you think this is going to impact the way John Boehner approaches immigration reform from here on out.
Oh, I think it just kills immigration reform for this session. I don't think there's any possibility of moving ahead with it at this point. I think that every Republican got the message that this is now the third rail, and that if they touch this, they're going to be dead.
Well, Dick, let's take this another step. There has been some speculation, if not outright prediction, that by executive order, President Obama will move forward with an amnesty and that Eric Cantor's defeat would accelerate such an executive order. Just general amnesty. If you're in the country, congratulations. If you got family who wants to come to the country, come on in. Do you expect the president to issue that type of executive amnesty?
That type of amnesty, I think he will. I'm not sure he'll be able to go that far legally. But I do think that since the president controls the enforcement of the law, I think he can decide just simply to end deportations. And he can do that by an executive order. I don't think he can confer legal status, but I think he can confer de facto legal status by stopping deportations. And I think he'll do that in an effort to win Latino votes in the off-year election. Remember that in 2010 rather, as you well know, JD, the Republicans lost a number of seats in Colorado and in Arizona and a couple of other places that they otherwise might have won because of a heavy Latino vote against them. New Mexico, too, I think. And I think that it's very likely that Obama will want to repeat that by this executive order strategy. He also knows that he's created an environment in which a legislative solution is impossible because he's eliminated the possibility of a consensus. There was a real chance a year ago that you could have a consensus, that you could have a deal where he would seal the border. They would get those who are here now would get legal work status, but not a path to citizenship. And Obama hated that idea because his goal is not to give legal status, it's to get them the vote so that they can vote Democratic forever. And he was afraid of that. So by taking these executive actions, on the one hand, he appeases the Latino community and wins their votes, and on the other hand, he makes a solution impossible unless it's on his terms, which includes citizenship and the vote.
Now, Dick, you've had interesting experiences as a political consultant to people on both sides of the aisle. Your involvement with President Clinton's reelection brought you in contact with one Terry McAuliffe, now the governor of Virginia. And I want to come back to Virginia 7 for the retail politics at stake here. We know in Virginia that there has been basically an inside deal. Republicans have, in essence, taken control of the state Senate. Terry McAuliffe doesn't strike me as a guy who will let that go. Might McAuliffe bring his influence to bear with the Democratic nominee in Virginia 7, another Randolph-Macon professor? Could we suddenly see Hollywood money, big-time Democrat donor money come into Virginia 7 to try and knock off Dave Bratt and what heretofore has been considered a safe Republican seat?
Well, I think they can try. I don't think that's going to succeed. I think that we can't ignore the fact that the overwhelming trend in the country is toward a Republican victory in 2014. And I don't think that by the time we're approaching Election Day, Democrats are going to be much worried about capturing Republican seats. They'll be fixated on defending as many of their own as they can. But I think that this move by Obama on immigration is kind of a ricochet shot, like you would do in pool, a bank shot where you hit the side of the board and it knocks a ball, which knocks another ball, which knocks it into the pocket. He knew that there was a danger of compromise here that would defang the issue politically because there would be no deportations, and it would do it short of giving Latinos who are now here illegally the vote, but would give them work status. He couldn't let that happen because he needed the pressure to end deportations to give them the vote, which is a goal that he had in mind. So now by doing these deportations, he knows that he's alienating the Republicans so thoroughly that there is no possibility that they will go along with the compromised immigration bill. Their base won't allow them. The guy who just tried got clobbered. And therefore he knows that he'll stop any real reform or compromise. And then in the meantime, through executive action, he can win Latino loyalty. It's a brilliant strategy, really, of divide and conquer.
You mentioned the divisive nature of this issue, Dick, and we're showing pictures of these kids who are still in those Sally ports and holding cells in Arizona being shipped across the country here. You know the power of pictures. Pictures say 1,000 words here. Without those pictures, would we have seen the same impact of immigration on this congressional race?
Yeah, I think we would have. I think the issue is very, very deeply ingrained. And those pictures have two interpretations. One is the interpretation the left will give them of these poor kids who want to come to the United States so badly that they migrate on foot from Guatemala and Nicaragua all the way through Mexico across the border to get here. And the other would be the conservative interpretation, which is that the minute you start monkeying with amnesty in the United States, you put up a welcome sign that encourages them to make that trek.
Right, and those pictures potentially bringing more people off the couch and getting to the polls in this primary, but also in the general election as well.
It's interesting to see. Dick Morris, we appreciate you weighing in today, and we will talk to you in the not-too-distant future about other political matters and their impact on public policy. Thanks so much for your time today, Dick.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
We look forward to it, too. So Dick Morris basically saying it's a Machiavellian strategy, a brilliant strategy by Barack Obama. That stands in contrast to the buzz around Washington that the administration is incompetent. So which is it? Why don't you weigh in? Is this a deliberate strategy to win the Latinos forever and a day? Why don't you tweet us your columns or your your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There is also email. Our address is connect@newsmaxtv.com. And don't forget Facebook, facebook.com/Newsmax. And we're coming right back.